Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Machin Leira online smicha. In Parsha Shoftim, there is a pasuk that says like this. We know that the Eibishter has asked that we should dedicate a certain group of Klal Yisrael, that they should be totally devoted to the service of Klal Yisrael for all the needs in the Beis HaMikdash. And they are the kohanim. So how do they survive? So the pasuk says in Parsha Shoftim, Perik Yud Ches, pasuk Gimel, and this is what the people have to get from, this is what the kohanim get from the people. Anybody who slaughters a offering, anybody who shechts an animal, imshar, imseh, if it's a bull or a shepsela. So whenever a person shechts an animal, then some part, as a token of appreciation, or whatever you want to call it, the Torah says the nasan l'koyin, because they are totally dedicated for the service of Hashem. So how are they going to survive? We have to support them by giving the koyin some of the body parts, some of the parts of the animal. That's what we call the matnos kahuna, the presents that the kohanim get. What are they? The zroya, the lechayayim, and the keva. Zroya is one of the arms, lechayayim is the cheeks, the keva is one of the stomachs, and for each one of those, there is a reason. And there's more that they deserve to get. They get certain meats that every time we shecht, we have to give the kohanim. Then you have to give them the reishis, the gancha, tiroishcha, v'yitzerecha. You have to give them the first of your wines. You have to give them the first of the wool, because kivay bochar Hashem elikecha, because Hashem chose them. Lamay l'shoretz b'shem Hashem, they should serve Hashem. So because they're busy, they're occupied with what they have to do, we support them by giving them these items. Now, I must tell you that there is a siman in Shulchan Aruch. The siman is in Yeridea, siman Samach Aleph, which discusses the dinei matnas, the laws that are connected to giving these presents to the kohen. And obviously, the question is, every time a person shechts an animal, he has to give away to a kohen. Even today the kohanim don't serve in the Beis HaMikdash, and we know that there are halachas that apply for a kohen even today. For example, the Torah says v'kidashtoi, that we have a mitzvah to show honor to a kohen, and that's why a kohen gets the first aliyah. When there's a time to bench, if there's a kohen, they are honored with leading the benching. So and the kohanim have a mitzvah to bless, to do the birchas kohanim. So does it apply today that every time you shecht an animal, you have to give these parts to a kohen? So in Shulchan Aruch, it actually, again, in Siman Samach Aleph, Seif Aleph, it says, Chayiv litein l'kohen, you have an obligation to give to a kohen these parts of the animal, of a shor and a seh. And the Shulchan Aruch goes on to read, to discuss exactly what parts they are, and the Shulchan Aruch goes as far as saying this is not only if you're shechting an animal to eat, even if you're shechting an animal for other purposes. As in Siv Vav it says, even if you're not shechting the animal to eat, you're shechting the animal because you need pet food, or you're shechting the animal for a refuah. Still, once you have an animal that you shechted, once there is meat available, you have to give some of it, or these dedicated parts, to the kohen. So there is this mitzvah. Now, as I mentioned before, when it comes to the other concepts that we honor the kohen, it says, show respect, ki es lechem Hashem elikecha hu makriv, because he serves the bread of Hashem. So in Shulchan Aruch, in the Birchas Kohanim, it says today's days where they don't serve the bread of Hashem, maybe the mitzvah of honoring the kohen doesn't apply that much anymore today. On top of that, Today's days, I don't know how many people could trace their lineage as a kohen from generation to generation to make sure that it still is intact. So not everybody is picture perfect as a kohen. So the honor and respect of a kohen should still be given, but it's not at the same level as it was back then. Ligabi, all the honor you give them. But how about this halacha? That every time you shecht an animal, the Torah says you have to give the kohen some. So again, at the end of that siman samach aleph, it says like this. It says, when do you give to a kohen? Let me read what it says in Shulchan Aruch. I want to read the Shulchan Aruch. If somebody shechts a Jewish animal, if it belongs to somebody else, the shochet has to give the matanis to the kohen. Where there's a sif chaf aleph, says the mechaber, matanos, these presents that the Torah says you have to give to the kohen, nehugais b'chol makom. It applies wherever you live. Bein ba'aretz, bein b'chutz la'aretz. It doesn't only apply in Israel. It applies everywhere. Bein b'fnei habayis, bein shaloi b'fnei habayis. It applies obviously in the time of the Beis Hamikdash or when there is no Beis Hamikdash. And the Ramah goes on to say, and the Mechaber goes on to say, v'yesh mi she'emer. However, there are those that say she'enei nehugos b'chutz la'aretz, that it doesn't apply out of Eretz Yisrael. In the diaspora, it doesn't apply. V'chein nagu, and that is the custom that out of Eretz Yisrael you don't have to give these parts of meat to the kohanim. So we see already that out of Eretz Yisrael it's not applicable, but it doesn't say that in Eretz Yisrael. The Pischei Tshuva says even though the Mechaber says the minig is that out of Eretz Yisrael you don't give it to the kohen, he brings some sefer lechem upon him in the name of the Maram, the man the boy lemev. If there is somebody that feels he wants to give to the kohen these parts, even though he's not obligated, matzi yoiv, he's able to give it, and he doesn't. It doesn't show like he's arrogant, like he feels he's better than everybody else by giving it to the kohen. But he also brings that the Chassam Sofer, every Yom Tif, before a Yom Tif, whenever he would shecht an animal for his family or for his students or whatever, he had a custom that he would shecht and separate some of these parts and would make sure to give it to the kohen. And whatever the Torah says the kohen deserves, the Chassam Sofer tried to fulfill it, even though the Chassam Sofer didn't live in Israel. So we see that there is this mitzvah, and even if not necessarily it applies today out of Eretz Yisrael, there is this concept. Now, when was this mitzvah told to us? This mitzvah, as it's mentioned in the Parashim, is Mishpatim. There is a debate amongst the Mefarshim. According to Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva holds that all the mitzvahs the Yidden were told in Har Sinai or before, so therefore this is one of the mitzvahs that's already given to us during the B'shas Matan Torah. Others hold that this mitzvah of the Matnas Kahuna was actually given to us a little later when the Mishkan was established, which happened after Matan Torah, and when Aaron started doing Birchas Kohanim the first time. The Ramban holds that actually the mitzvah of Matnas Kahuna was only given to us when the Yidden were about to enter Eretz Yisrael. Now, as I mentioned, the whole Siman of Shulchan Aruch goes on to discuss what exactly, which parts of the animal are the three parts. And we're going to talk a little about why the three parts. But what is the reasons why, besides what the Torah says, because these kohanim are dedicated all their life in the Beis Hamikdash, serving us, we have to support them. Are there any other reasons? So it's brought, the obvious reason is to support the kohanim, so they should be able to do what they do. The Gemara says that they chose these three body parts, that these three pieces of meat go to the kohen as a reward for what Pinchas did. Pinchas stood up when he saw a very not nice story happening, and Pinchas was zealous and stood up for the sake of Hashem. Pinchas killed Zimri ben Soli and Cosbi Basur. He killed them by holding a spear. So because he held a spear, and while he was doing his act, Al Shem Shemayim, he prayed, and then he also stuck the spear through and through. So therefore, these are the three things that the kohanim merit to get. The spear is symbolic with the arm, so that's why they get the zroya. The lechayim, the cheeks, is because Pinchas prayed while he was doing that act. And the koiva, the stomach, is he went through and through when he killed those two that were doing the wrong act. The Ibn Ezra says the reason they get these three parts is because the kohanim work in the Beis Hamikdash, and there are these three parts is what the kohanim use most. They use their hands because they lift their hands when they bless the Eibishter. They lift their hands when they bless Hashem, when they bless the people by making berachas kohanim. The inside of the animal, they get the stomach because they have to check the inside of the animal to make sure that they are all kosher. And of course, the cheeks is also because of the birchas kohanim. The hands of all the avodah they do, and the mouth because of the birchas kohanim they do, and the checking of the insides of the animal. That's why they get the keva. The Rambam in Moyer Nevuchim says that the reason why they get these body parts because they are rachis. These parts are special. Just like Bikurim, they get the first and the best. So too, these three parts are symbolic for best parts. The cheeks represents the head, which the head is the most honorable part of the body. The arm represents the first limb that extends itself out of the body. The first thing that extends itself out of the body is the hand, and therefore that you give the zroya. And the keva is the main part of the digestion system, and because these three parts are the most chashuv parts, you give that away to the kohen. Now, who exactly has to give these three things? The mitzvah, as it's discussed in Shulchan Aruch, is on the shoichet. Anybody who shechts a Jewish animal, whether any Jewish animal, he has to make sure that these parts go to the kohen. If a kohen or Levi shecht, they're exempt, as you'll see. According to the Gemara, a shoichet who is lazy and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, he doesn't give this, Bezdin has the right to excommunicate him. In the time of the Mabit and the Radvaz, they even made a psak din. They even made a ruling that people should not buy meat from these butchers or from these shachtim that don't do what they're supposed to do and support the kohanim. Now, you have to give this to the kohen. To which kohen to give, that's your choice. Now, no kohen could come and demand, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. The owner of the animal, he can decide who is his favorite kohen, who he'd like to support most. Now, the Shulchan Aruch, however, says, even though there are choices, it's preferable you give it first to a kohen Talmud Chacham, depending on the chashivus of the kohen. There is a machlokes in the poskim, because this is a mitzvah in the Torah, when you support the kohanim, do you have to make a bracha when you give these things to the kohanim? There are those that say there's no need to make this bracha, and others say, why not? It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Even those who say, even amongst the opinions that say you have to make a bracha, there are different opinions what's the text of the bracha. It's brought that the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, on top of the regular bracha, he held that you should make a bracha on the giving of to the kohen. He also made a bracha shechiyonu when he did this. The Arizal told his student Reb Chaim Vital that when he gives these items to the kohen, he should say the pasuk that I just mentioned from Parshas Mishpatim, V'zeh yiyah mishpat ha-kohenim, v'nosan la-kohen hazroya v'alechiyayim v'akeva. And actually in other svarim, just like many other mitzvahs, there's a way how you prepare, there's a text that you say to prepare the mitzvah, to prepare to do the mitzvah. So too, there are other svarim that when they're doing this mitzvah, they also have a text to say to prepare it. So what happens if a person shechts and did not give the kohen what he was supposed to? So I mentioned the Shulchan Aruch, yeah? If it's a mitzvah that you're supposed to do and you didn't do it, you transgress. You're not fulfilling a mitzvah sasem in a Torah, and at the same time you're stealing what possibly might belong to the kohanim. Now that's only if you're eating these three items. If you're eating the rest of the animal, which doesn't belong to them anyways, there is a big machlokes. Could you eat the rest of the animal when the three items that the Torah says belongs to the kohen was not given to them? According to some opinions, according to Gemara and Bavli, if you didn't give the kohen what he deserves to get, to eat the rest of the meat is equivalent to eating tevel. Tevel is, you're supposed to give meiser from a certain growing item, vegetation. If you didn't give meiser, then you can't eat the rest, right? Until you give meiser, if the food is considered tevel, you're not allowed to eat it. So some say, according to our Gemara, if you didn't give the kohen what he needs, or what the Torah says he should get, you can't eat the rest. However, according to others, that it's not exactly the same. Today's days, for whatever reason, even though I just made such a big fuss, and it actually says in Shulchan Aruch that it only doesn't apply in Chutz La'aretz, but everywhere else it should apply, we find that in some of the earlier Svarim, already in Sefer Zevach Toida, and this Siman Samach Aleph, it says like this: Da, I want you to know, Ki amina kadmin hoya bekan lahafresh matanis elu kisvaras harambam mored asrin. Over here, the custom was that everybody listened to the Rambam, and they actually gave the kohanim what they deserve. V'loi toiv asa. And it wasn't good what the person did. Who's the person? Doesn't say his name. Mishehir po mitzvah zu me'akol Hashem. There was a person who weakened, who made light this mitzvah. Kivon sheminik pashat beinenu me'olam kach. It was accepted forever that we do this. I don't know, he says, why it was stopped. Why it was stopped. Now, some people say that they did a little research of today's days in all the slaughtering houses, and they found out that even in Israel today, in all slaughtering houses, there is no issue with these body parts. And even these parts that the Torah says belongs to the kohen, they sell it like regular meat. They don't give it to the kohen. There are some slaughterhouses that they have a deal with the kohanim. They have a deal with some kohanim, and they give them some money instead, or they do some kind of deal that in other words, the kohanim should benefit a little from it, so they should be able to sell it. So in other words, they shouldn't just ignore the fact that the Torah wants them to benefit. Now, what's the reason why, despite the fact that so much is said about this mitzvah, and the Shulchan Aruch even says that it should be done, and yet it's not done? So some say that one of the reasons why we refrain from giving this to the kohanim, because there is a halacha that we follow which is called Hamoitzi Mechaveroi Olav Araya, which means you want my money, you have to prove to me that you deserve it. Today there's very few kohanim, as I mentioned, there are very few kohanim who could really prove their lineage that they really are kohanim. So if they can't prove their lineage, I don't owe them anything. Right? At the same time, there is another halacha in Hilchas Hashavas Aveda. In Hilchas Hashavas Aveda, if you find a lost object, the halacha is that you only have to give it back to the person who claims it's his if he gives you some kind of proof that the item is his. But if he has no proof to prove it, then maybe it's not his. Yeah? So these are the excuses why, despite the Torah made such a big fuss of giving it, today's days, we don't find too many places where they actually give it. Others say it's just a technical thing. The prices are so expensive, and we can't just give it away. But we have to find a halachic justification. Others actually question the justification because all these excuses that I just gave doesn't really apply here, because we don't need to be able to get these matnas kahuna. You don't need a kohen miyuchas. A kohen miyuchas means a proven kohen, and a person who has lineage. Even a person who is accepted as a kohen could come and collect matnas kahuna, and all these kohenim today should be considered a kohen muchzik. Yeah? So this is the discussion of why, from one hand, the Torah says what we're supposed to do, and from the other hand, we don't find people doing it. There's one more reason why specifically these items are told to be given to the kohen, and that is, I don't know what everybody's saying. I think who was it? Ibn Ezra says that these are the choicest parts of the meat. Not necessarily these are the best parts of the meat. Aren't the better parts that the kohanim would have enjoyed more? Why did the Torah choose these three? It's actually to teach the kohanim a lesson. Sometimes the kohanim, from one hand, I was saying that we should give them the best. Now there's another explanation. Actually, we're not giving them the best, so they should not become too arrogant. What is that? A person who has this high position, and he's a kohen, he's so involved with spiritual matters, sometimes he might feel he deserves, he's owed something. So for the kohen not to think that everything he gets, I deserve it, the Jews owe it to me, the simple Jew has to give it to me, therefore the Torah gives them, the Torah says, give them the zroya. And for them not to make a mistake, that the service of sacrificing the carbon is what's creating the atonement. That's not necessarily the only thing. Perhaps the most important thing is the confession the person makes. So their actual sacrificing the carbon is only partial. It's the vidui, it's the confession that the person makes. and the smicha seyadayim that the person makes on the carbon, that's what creates the kapara. So therefore we give them the lechayayim, we give them the cheek and the tongue for them to remember that what is the main thing that creates the kapara. And for them not to make a mistake, that they're done, as long as they brought the carbon to the Beis Hamikdash, and they took care of the carbon. Now they get a prize for working so nicely, and now they can eat as much as they want. They have to know that the eating of the karbanos is part of the chayva, of the obligation of the carbon. Therefore, the Torah was very, very punctual, very adamant exactly when the time of the eating should be done, that are specific times, and because the eating of the carbon also has limitations, that's why one of the things that the kohanim get is the stomach to symbolize this part, that even in the eating of the carbon there are halachas.